In the heart of the snow-capped mountains, where the wind whispers secrets only the ancient peaks understand, stood a monastery, silent and imposing. Within its walls lived a monk, his vows not of poverty or chastity, but of silence. He hadn't uttered a sound in 50 years. His world was one of quiet observation, of listening to the language of the universe that speaks without words. One day, a warrior arrived. His name was Kellen, a name sung in taverns and feared on battlefields. He was a storm of a man, his armor scarred from 100 duels, his spirit restless and loud. He had conquered men, armies, and cities, but he couldn't conquer the roaring chaos within his own mind. He sought the legendary silent monk, believing some ancient, secret technique would grant him the peace he craved. Kellen strode into the monastery's courtyard, his heavy boots echoing in the profound quiet. He found the monk sweeping fallen leaves. The monk was old, his back stooped, but his eyes held the clarity of a glacial lake. Kellen, accustomed to commanding attention, announced his purpose with a voice that boomed. "I am Kellen. I have come to learn the ultimate warrior's art from you. Teach me your secrets to power and peace." The monk simply stopped sweeping, looked at Kellen, and smiled faintly. He then handed Kellen another broom. Kellen stared, bewildered. A broom. He was a master of the sword, a legend. He came for wisdom, not chores. But the monk's gaze was unwavering, gentle yet firm. With a sigh of frustration, Kellen took the broom and began to sweep. His movements were clumsy, aggressive, stirring up more dust than he collected. The monk watched, then returned to his own sweeping, his motions a graceful, silent dance. Thus began Kellen's training. There were no sparring sessions, no lessons on swordplay, no ancient scrolls to decipher. His days were filled with chores. He swept leaves with the monk. He drew water from the well, the rhythmic creak of the pulley, the only sound. He chopped wood, the thud of the axe echoing against the stone walls. He tended the small vegetable garden, his hands, once calloused by the hilt of a sword, now calloused by the handle of a hoe. Weeks turned into months. Kellen's frustration grew into a seething rage. Every evening, he would sit before the monk, demanding to be taught. "When will my training begin?" he would ask, his voice tight with impatience. The monk would simply pour him a cup of tea, the liquid steaming in the cold air, and gesture for him to drink. The silence was maddening. Kellen felt like he was a prisoner, his own ambition a cage. The noise in his head grew louder, a cacophony of past battles, of perceived slights, of a desperate need for validation. One afternoon, as Kellen was fetching water, his patience finally snapped. He threw the heavy wooden bucket to the ground, the water splashing across the cold stones. "I am done," he roared, the sound startling a flock of birds from the eaves. "I came here to become a better warrior, not a servant. Your silence is a trick, a mockery." The monk, who was mending a robe nearby, didn't flinch. He slowly stood up, walked over to Kellen, and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Then, he pointed not at a weapon rack or a training dummy, but at the well. Kellen followed his finger, confused. The monk pointed again, this time at the water Kellen had spilled. It was already freezing, forming a thin, jagged sheet of ice on the stones. Then, the monk pointed back at the still, dark water deep within the well. Kellen stared. And for the first time, he didn't just look. He saw the spilled water, agitated and chaotic, had frozen into a chaotic, brittle form. The spilled water was his own mind, agitated, raging, and ultimately frozen in its own turmoil. The water in the well, ... That was the monk, still, deep, and powerful in its tranquility. In that momente, profound realization washed over him. The monk had been training him all along. The sweeping was a lesson in focus, each stroke a meditation. The chopping of wood was a lesson in rhythm and control. Tending the garden was a lesson in patience and nurturing life. The silence wasn't the absence of teaching. It was the teaching itself. It forced Kellen to confront the only opponent he had never been able to defeat. Himself, his inner chaos, The relentless noise of his ego, his pride, his past was louder than any battle cry, more deafening than the clash of 1,000 swords. He had spent his life fighting external enemies, never realizing the true war was within. From that day on, Kellen's approach changed. He swept the leaves not as a chore, but as a way to clear his mind. He drew water and felt its coolness, its life-giving properties. He sat in meditation, not fighting the silence, but embracing it. He began to listen, truly listen to the sound of the wind, the crackle of the fire, the beat of his own heart. One winter morning, the first snow began to fall. The monk gestured for Kellen to join him on a veranda overlooking the valley. They sat side by side on a simple wooden bench, saying nothing. They watched as millions of unique snowflakes drifted down from the heavens, each one silent, each one perfect. They watched as the world was slowly draped in a blanket of pure, silent white. Kellen felt a stillness he had never known. The roar in his mind had subsided, replaced by a quiet hum of awareness. He wasn't empty, he was full of the present moment, of the beauty of the falling snow, of the shared silence with his master. He looked at the old monk, whose eyes were closed, a serene smile gracing his lips. Kellen finally understood. Peace wasn't a prize to be won after the struggle was over. It wasn't the absence of conflict or hardship. Peace was the ability to find stillness in the midst of the storm. It was the mastery of one's own inner noise. The greatest warrior isn't the one who can defeat 1,000 enemies, but the one who can conquer the chaos within their own soul. The training was complete, and not a single word had been spoken. This story teaches us a powerful lesson that resonates deeply in our own noisy lives. We are constantly bombarded by notifications, demands, and the endless chatter of our own thoughts. We seek peace by trying to eliminate external struggles, but true tranquility comes from within. It's about learning to control our inner noise, to find that quiet center even when the world around us is loud. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey today. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more stories that explore the depths of wisdom and the human spirit. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Find the silence within your storm.